Welcome to the Healing Kings podcast, and this is your host, Drew Koss. And today we are going to talk about killing the monster while it's a baby. Now, as strange and as crazy as that title may seem, I think you're going to actually get a lot out of this today. Today, I'm going to tell on myself. I want to tell on some mistakes that I made and some issues that I had, and I know that some men will be able to identify with it. So if I start saying yo and slang stuff, this is just me being truthful. This title, Kill the Monster While It's a Baby, it's really about handling small things before they become big, right? My man CJ, we used to always talk about having a range of emotions, and he would always say, deal with it when it's a sigh before it becomes a scream. Deal with it while it's a sigh before it becomes a scream. Because screams are usually accumulated sighs. A monster or something bigger is usually accumulated by small things. Now, when I realized this, I realized that this happens in life in almost every area of life. When me and my wife would get into, we call them heated discussions, she would always say this, and I couldn't grasp it at all, and I just couldn't understand it. I do now. She would say, you know my heart, you know my intent. My intent is not to harm you. And every time I got into arguments because of my past trauma, I always thought the person was aiming to hurt me. So in defense, when we got into arguments, something that I would always do is I would literally just shut down. Men, raise your hand if you're around your wife right now, and just pat your lap. But raise your hand if you're not around anybody. If you're identifying already, when things are getting heated, you shut down. And I was using the whole I shut down so I don't go crazy, or so I don't yell or do something like that. I'm not a yeller. I was using that as the reason why I shut down. And the reason why I was shutting down was I was going back into a place of literally, I don't want to deal with conflict. I don't want to have to go there because I know it may be ugly. And she would always say, you know my intent, even if I'm not saying it wrong, saying it right, you know my intent. My intent is not to harm you. The flip side of that, I want to help ladies out also, and men. When you're dealing with issues that are heavy, or just issues that you know your spouse or your friend, if you bring up this certain issue and you know it's something that kind of like rattles their boat, just watch how you talk. That's simple. I'm big on how you say things is just as important as what you say, especially if it's an area where this person has had either trauma or they're just triggered a lot. Now, she would say, I'm not, I'm not saying this against you. What I didn't realize was when we were having smaller talks as we were progressing in the marriage and relationship, when things came up, we could have both killed the baby at that moment. We could have both killed the small thing to realize, hey, when we talk about this subject, I'm okay talking about it. It's just hard for me. And if we knew that, it wouldn't have become a monster where we're shutting down, or I'm shutting down and I'm not talking for the rest of the night. That was a trauma issue that I had from back in the day when I was younger. When something happened, I would just shut down. And back then it was bad. I would shut down for like 3 weeks. Then I would just literally not talk again. And I would feel that, I'm just protecting myself. We have to realize as men that opening up might get us hurt. Let's just be honest. But not opening up will always put us in a place where we are never receiving what we could receive from other people, our spouses, our kids, good friends, and more. Now, the whole thing of killing the monster while it's a baby is when you start seeing small things, men, that bother you, that hurt your feelings. I know this is hard, but speak up about it. Because if you let it slide, and it's not to say like nobody can do you wrong. It's not that. It's more so how you feel is so important that if you let your feelings get rattled and you never say anything, what will end up happening is you'll have no feelings one day. You'll end up being a brick. You'll end up being a literal bear. And I know that because that was me. And it's usually most of the men who I coach. And when we start dealing with that, they start realizing that they get better in coaching. They get better in business. They get better in their normal life. Those small emotions that get tethered or that get hit, talk about it, man. Talk about it. It's not easy, but I guarantee you, if you talk about it, it won't become a monster. You won't become a monster. And that's way more important than you think. The reason why I believe men bury their emotions is because they feel that it's so small and it shouldn't bother them, or no one's going to even listen if I bring this up. And that hurts. It hurts because I've buried emotions for years thinking that, oh, this person has it way worse than me, so why would I even consider being bothered by this when they have it 10 times worse than me? It's not a comparison game. It's not a comparison game. It's not even a game where you start to figure out if I am valued enough to even say something. You got to say something, because it will turn into a monster. Next thing you know, all your relationships are feeling the brunt of you burying your emotions. Now, as a younger person, sometimes we don't have control over that. When we're young, we don't have the mental stability. We're not emotionally intelligent to know that when something happens, go share it with somebody. But if you're listening to this and you're old enough, I want you to practice that. The first person that you might share it with might be God, until you feel that there's somebody around you specifically, maybe a journal, a therapist, somebody close to you. You just got to share it because it's going to become a monster. So instead of you fighting Godzilla, you could just be killing this whole thing when it's really, really small. And just because it's not easy doesn't mean it's not worth it. If I knew how much going through healing journeys and processes was going to affect me in a good way, if I was shown that, I think I would have moved faster towards it. Or if I was shown probably how this hasn't helped you in the past, it's not helping you now, and if you don't deal with it now, it's going to harm you more in the future, I would have made quicker moves. I just thought this healing thing was just a new movement. Like, everyone was on Bitcoin and stuff like that forever. And right now it's AI, and I don't know what's going to be next, but it became one time that therapy was like the new badge of honor. So I thought, I'm not trying to go and talk to somebody about what I feel like just to have a badge of honor. I don't want that. I don't need that. But I needed to release something. And I started realizing when things would come up and it was small, try to address it. The last thing I would say, and this is really, really meant for men, try to address it while giving yourself love. And I say that because we are so used to conquering things, and we don't realize that our heart is like a garden. You don't conquer a garden, you till a garden. And then you plant seeds, and then you let it grow after you've been watering it and they got sunlight. Show yourself love on the path of healing. On the path of taking it out while it's small, show yourself love still. It does not mean you don't matter. It does not mean that you're a mess. Something has happened and you are addressing it so that you can actually move on from a good place. Like I said, it's not easy, but it's so worth it. If there's one thing you take from this podcast episode, I want you to know, when you start on this healing journey, you'll see things, and at first you'll feel that you should be over it already. It's not the case. You'll get triggered at times, and you'll think, there's no way this should still be like messing with me. It happens to me. But if you can learn to show yourself love and grace as you're on the journey or as you're progressing on the journey, I guarantee you'll realize that you're valuable, you matter,